On this episode of Locked On Angels, we're going to start with a question. The question is this: when did you turn the game off last night? I know you're everydayers. I know you love this team like we do, but let's be honest, it was awful, and we've got awful takeaways for you. 5 things that we saw in this game last night that made us sick to our stomach. We're going to share those with you coming right up. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
All right, Angels, did you get it out of your system? Did you have to drop such a terrible game? Like, let's just get that one out of the way. Turn the page, as Soch would say. Now, despite a performance like last night, Mike and I have been fans of this team for years, and we remember when there was good times. Remember the good times? Like 10 years ago, Mike?
I had more hair.
That's right. That's right. We've been hosts of Locked On Angels. This will be our 4th season here with you, talking Angels baseball with you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. On today's show, I went crazy and did a bunch of research on the bullpen, and I'm going to tell you why they're better than the numbers say. We'll talk about that in our 3rd segment. We're also going to share about one big difference between Wash and Ray as managers. But first, let's talk about the big loss against the Texas Rangers last night, Mike.
Yeah, some gross takeaways that made us sick to our stomach. First takeaway, Soriano was just awful in this game. Everything fell apart for him in the top of the 4th. He was really good, had a 1-0 lead heading into the top of the 4th, and then just couldn't find the strike zone, was overthrowing everything. He allowed 3 walks and gave up 3 hits in that inning, and every single one of those walks came around to score, John. Soriano went 4 innings, 3 hits, 5 runs, 5 walks, 4 Ks. Entered last night, and we all know this, but here's the numbers to really emphasize this. He entered last night's game with a 5.57 ERA and a 1.65 whip at home, and a 2.47 ERA and a 1.62 whip on the road. So home is just not kind to Soriano. And I know that we covered this in previous conversations, John, but what the heck is it?
I am convinced that, in the past, okay, I'll start over. In the past, it's been my question of what's the process of going from the bullpen to the mound, right? Because sometimes he just doesn't have a feel for anything right from the get-go. What I don't understand about this outing was how quickly things did fall apart. And that was, as you mentioned, the 4th inning. To have a 1.26 whip on the road is fantastic, but for that to be, a whole 40 points higher at home, I don't know what it is that he loses control. He can't locate. He can't find the zone. Is the backstop weird? Is somebody belly dancing behind home plate and he's getting distracted? I don't understand what it is about home that just doesn't work for Soriano. And it's not even like as if it would be a visual thing. He loses all feel. He loses all command. And you don't see that on the road. And the numbers back that up. So whatever that process is of getting from the bullpen to the mound, usually I feel like is the problem, because as we've said many times, the first at bat of the game, you can tell how Soriano was going to start, and he looked good in the first at bat of the game, right? And so it was just surprising to me that things fell apart so quickly. I'm not sure what it is. Could you venture a guess, Michael?
No, I don't know if it's because he likes going from the bullpen to sitting for the first inning, I guess, and then can then start, right? Like, because he goes from the bullpen immediately to the mound at home, and on the road he goes from the bullpen to the dugout and gets to sit for a moment. So maybe they just need to rearrange his his timing. Maybe they need to rearrange his schedule for the day. It just doesn't seem to be working. Locked On Hall of Famer Brett McGuire tweeted the last 4 starts for Jose Soriano, and every bad start was at home. He did have one good start at home, but every other bad start was just not great, and it was at home. And so just not great last night. Overthrowing stuff. I don't know what happened between the 3rd and the 4th inning, because he was great up until the 4th inning, and then was really trying to overthrow the knuckle curve, was really trying to overthrow the splitter, the sinker. It just seemed like everything he was trying to throw, he was trying to snap it even more than he was. And I don't know if it was the second time, beginning 3rd time through the order.
Just going to say that, and that's how I know we're brothers, because you just read my mind.
Yeah.
It's not the first time, second time, 3rd time through the order, because he gets through most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Deep into games. And so, yeah, I don't know what changes or what flips for him.
Well, I think what happened maybe last night is maybe he got into his own head and was like, okay, I'm going through the order a second time or a third time. And so I gotta be a little bit more fine because they've seen my good stuff already. But that's the thing, man. And Guba's emphasized this, and Mark Langston said it on the radio side. Like, he doesn't need to do that. You're so good. You don't need to do that. Right. And so just not a great start for him. Then second takeaway, they bring in Sam Aldeguerri and they use him as an innings eater in this game, John. And Aldeguerri entered in the top of the 5th. He walks 3 hitters and allows 3 runs. In fact, both him and Soriano combined for 8 walks in the top of the 4th and top of the 5th. And 6 of those guys came around to score. Rangers scored 9 runs in 2 innings. Aldeguerri came back out for the top of the 6th inning. He gave up another run. He went 2 innings, 5 hits, 5 runs, 4 walks. And walks have been a problem for him in Double-A this season. He has 40 walks in 72 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 1.54 whip. Now, he admitted that he was struggling with location in Double-A since returning from his appearance at the major league level. And then things shifted for him in his last start when 6 innings, he gave up 1 run. And it was because he said, I was focused on getting strike 1. And so there's been a lot of conversation about how they're using these young guys at the major league level and doesn't mess them up. Now, we did a whole segment about how they were excited just to be in the major leagues, right? They're like, hey, however I can help, I want to help.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about how the Angels used Aldeguerri last night?
I don't know. I think to remove him from the Double-A situation and then bring him back there after he came up and pitched well. He pitched well for the Angels the first time around. And you kind of wonder what happened with Caden Dana as well. But Mike, the guys want to be there. Chris Cortez said, like, no, it doesn't make a difference to us. Like, if we get to the majors and we're going to pitch, we're going to treat it just like we're pitching down in the minor leagues. We're going to do what we do well. And so I don't really buy the narrative that this is bad for the development. This is bad for the player. This is bad. And I think about somebody like CJ Wilson. Pitched out of the pen for the Rangers before he became a starter. This is not new.
Yeah.
I don't understand this discussion of, I can't believe they're throwing this guy out of the pen. We've done it for years. Like, this is not new. This is not different.
Other baseball teams have done that. You talked about 2 of the Brewers' big arms, Corbin Burns, when he was with them, right? Like
Brandon Woodruff, too.
And Brandon Woodruff. That's how they brought them up. They brought them up and had them in the bullpen, and they were doing kind of the spot start or the bullpen assignments. And that's how they got acclimated to the major league. So it isn't new. It's just funny that there's this narrative of anger and vitriol from Angel fans and even Angel reporters. They're like, I can't believe. And it's like, whoa, well, wait, like, are you not paying attention to the league?
Have you watched baseball before?
Yeah. It feels odd. Now, third takeaway, John, was Taylor Ward doing Taylor Ward things in the outfield. He had a ball hit to him in the top of the 4th, 89 miles an hour off the bat. And it had an expected batting average of .020. 0.020.
2%.
Ward got near the ball and then pumped the brakes, pulls up. Ball bounces fair and goes over the wall. Now, I know that you and I have really piled on Ward on this show. I think rightly so. And I know that he leads the team in home runs and RBIs, but he's not above critique. And this moment was not a good look at all. Your pitcher's in trouble. You have an opportunity to go get that ball, maybe lay out for that ball, slide to get that ball. He pulls up like he's chasing butterflies and doesn't want to scare it away. He pulls up, and it costs his team some big runs.
Yeah, well, and he pulled up when I don't even think he had to slide, Mike. I don't think he needed to dive. I don't think he needed to slide. He pulled up because he thought it was going foul.
Mm.
Why aren't you catching that in foul territory if you think it's going foul?
Right.
Is he still scared of the wall? Because it kind of feels like he's still scared of the wall. In fact, I even said on Twitter, somebody said, like, well, to expect him to make that catch when he's got to slide or he's got to dive. I didn't think he needed to slide. I don't think he needed to dive. In fact, we've seen Taylor Ward be 10 times more bold and make those catches before. Didn't he go over the wall last year or do something like that? He robbed a grand slam last year, and it was a very impressive play out in left field.
Yeah.
So for him to pull up, expecting that to fall in as a foul ball and not get to it, I think he had every opportunity to get to it. That was very frustrating. It all went for naught, considering we had Kevin Newman pitching in the 7th inning.
Not good.
So not great. So it's all for naught. And so we can criticize and whatnot, but the fact is that it just when you talk about Joe Adell's defense and the things that he does out there, it's very good when you don't have to talk about his defense anymore.
Yeah.
But it feels like once, maybe twice a week, we're talking about what something Taylor Ward did out there.
Yeah.
It's just not a good pattern, Mike.
No. 4th takeaway, Mike Trout had a terrible at-bat. I think one of the worst at-bats of the season in the bottom of the 6th inning. I know it was already out of reach, but he goes up there. Sean O'Well's on at first base, and he's up 3 balls and no strikes. And then he watches 2 splitters and a 4-seam fastball right in the middle of the zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't like it was out, got a corner, got high and tight, right? It was right in the middle part of the zone. He watched all 3 of I know we need base runners. I get it. But I knew that was going to be a ball right down the middle when he threw that splitter. Then the second splitter, right down the middle. Then the fastball, right down the middle. Mike was not going to swing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I literally said out loud, "What are you doing, Michael? You're making us look bad. You're making the Michaels look bad. What are you doing?"
And it's weird because he swung at the first pitch from Eovaldi, kind of like what he did last night, or 2 nights ago, I should say, against DeGrom. He swung at the first pitch because it seemed like he was changing his approach. And I even was going to make a note for our show today. Oh, Trout's being a little bit more aggressive. And then this happened in the bottom of the 6th. I was like, never mind.
Last takeaway, I asked the question at the top. When'd you turn the game off?
Oh,
every dayers.
Ready?
Yeah.
I had a little trick at the beginning of the show and click. Oh, wait, no. Click. No, that didn't work either. Click.
There it goes. Yeah. If you're on the audio side, John just turned off his camera.
I'm back.
He's back. Yeah, it was 7th inning. I was like, well, we already know where this is going, right? And my daughter made brownies, so I had a brownie.
Congratulations on your horrible loss, brownie, Michael. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming right up, what's the difference between Ray Montgomery and Ron Washington as managers? We got a stat here that may tell us all we need to know. And I went way overboard in my research on the bullpen, and I can't wait to tell you about it. Yeah, typical John. And we'll talk about all of that coming right up.
If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. I mean, think about the last time you had an emergency, something broke in the house, you call someone to help you out. If they don't answer, you don't wait for them to call you back. You just move on to the next person. And that's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or on your computer. If you've ever juggled 2 phones, one's a business phone, one's a personal phone, you're not sure who's calling you and when, you have to make sure you have a specific ringtone. OpenPhone solves that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox, and no more wondering who's handling all of it.
Do people still use ringtones, Michael?
And they have an AI agent that handles after-hours calls. I might keep mine on vibrate. I never know if anybody's calling me. These AI agents for OpenPhone, they answer common questions and they capture leads, so you never miss a customer. And OpenPhone is offering our everydayers of Locked On Angels 20% off their first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have a existing number right now with another service, OpenPhone's going to port that over, no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels have not been the same team in one-run games and extra innings that they were to start the season. In fact, here's a really interesting stat. Here are the close games and extra inning results before June 20th, and then after June 20th. Before June 20th, they were 15-6 in one-run games. They were 6-0 in extra inning games, which that's a huge difference from years past. However, after June 20th, they're 2-5 in one-run games, and they're 1-4 in extra inning games. So what changed on June 20th, Mike?
Ray Montgomery became the interim manager. Wash stepped down due to health reasons. So, John, what do you think is more likely? Do you think that these numbers are because Wash is not around, or are these numbers just a result of things always evening out? You know who you are? You're even Steven. Everything always evens out. So do you think this is just baseball being baseball, and over the course of the season, things start to even out? Because this team is around 500 team. They're an average team, neutral team, right? And those numbers were very not neutral. They're very positive. Are we coming back to the means? Is that what's happening here?
It's interesting because extra innings always feels like a crapshoot, doesn't it? And they've had to play a lot of extra inning games at home. They've had to play some on the road, obviously. And they were doing really well away in extra inning games, which is really difficult to do. So for that to even out, and, they lost the 2 extra inning games against the Blue Jays because the home team has the advantage and they were in Toronto, right? And so to me, I think that it's more to do with things evening out, but I don't think it's exclusively that. I think that both Ray Montgomery and Ron Washington make decisions very, very differently. Case in point is starting pitching. Hey, can you get this last guy? Can I motivate you? Can I get you to get through this last inning? All you need is one more out. Yeah, Wash, I can do it. All right, it's yours. Where Ray has had a pretty quick hook at times, and rightfully so. I don't think that there was anything wrong with the quick hook that he gave. I think it was Kohanowitz, and he also gave one to Anderson, which was a little bit surprising. But that's not how Wash would do it. He would ask the guys, especially somebody like Tyler Anderson, hey, you got this? One more? You can do it? All right, I trust you. And more often than not, that would work. And so I guess there's, as always, a lot of nuance to the situation because, again, I think that things are not plateauing, but evening out. I think that we talked about it, was it last week? Luck and unluck that the Angels have. And when it comes to their record, the run differential proves that, they've been pretty lucky. They've been pretty lucky in the way that they've won games and the games that they were able to win. The fact that they have a negative run differential, but they've been able to win those one-run games. Look, there's still 17-11 in one-run games if you add up the before and after June 20th. But the truth is they probably won a lot of games that they shouldn't have won and, also gave up a lot of games that they probably could have won. So I think that there's a lot of nuance. It's a little bit of balance. They definitely have had their unluckiness. You watch them hit the ball really hard and it goes right to somebody. I mentioned Joe Adell 2 nights ago hitting a line drive the opposite way, which is what you want him to do, but it goes right into Adolis Garcia's glove. And so, again, to bring back that conversation of luck versus unluck, the way they've won has been lucky, but the way that they've been hitting is very unlucky, in my opinion. What's your opinion?
I do think that Ray is managing differently. I know that you've talked about pulling guys, and rightly so, but there has been one instance I can think of with Kyle Hendricks where he took him out after 5 innings and he was cruising. And Kyle Hendricks said, hey, it's the manager's decision. This is what we want to do. It was because I was going to get ready to pitch for the 3rd time, go the 3rd time through the order. And so the book said not to do that, right? Now, he didn't say those words, but that's kind of what was insinuated in that conversation. And so I think for somebody like Ray Montgomery, I think that it has been a detriment to this team more than Ron Washington. And here's why. I think Ray is stuck to what the book says. And I think Wash did operate more on feel. And that's why you did see the quick, hey, let's send a runner, or let's put a bunt down, or right. And we saw a lot more of that maybe last year than we did this year. Yeah. But you haven't seen that at all with Ray Montgomery managing even in extra innings. They refused against the Blue Jays to move that runner from second to third. There was no attempt to even try to do that.
One of the things that's in the DNA of a very, very analytical, like it's their flesh and blood analytical person. One of the things that's in their DNA is no bunts ever. A bunt is worthless. It's an automatic out. It's that will tell you everything you need to know about somebody, whether they trust analytics or not, if they're willing to put a sacrifice bunt down.
Yeah. And I think that it's a mistake to manage that way, especially with a team that swings and misses as much as the Angels do. Yeah, I get that they are one of the top 10 teams, top 5 teams in barreling percentage, that they make good contact. And when they do, it does go their way. But when they don't make contact, man, it really falls apart for them. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. I do think you're right that, everything kind of is going to come back to neutral, come back to the center, and you get to find out what kind of team this really is. But I think Ray Montgomery, some of those losses are on him because he did not make those decisions that he needed to make. And I think the biggest example of that was when we saw the lack of a move when they had a lefty coming up and they kept a righty in the game, right? And it cost them at the moment. And that was when Ryan Goings was in and Ray Montgomery was already tossed. But I think that is a situation where you can see that one of them was probably wanting to go by the book, but didn't have it in front of them. And the other guy probably would have gone by the book. And it ended up being a bad decision when it probably would have been a good decision to bring in a lefty there.
I was just going to say that letting Sam Bachman have one more guy was a total feel move. It was, oh man, he had that third strikeout and d'Arnaud, it went past him and he didn't get the out. Let's let him have one more. That's a feel move.
Yeah.
And fortunately the Angels won the game, but to not bring Brock Burke in after that happened to face that lefty, like you said, it's because Goins didn't have the book in front of him.
Right.
And so that would have been a perfect situation for a Montgomery move where you bring in the lefty to face the lefty, especially because the stats tell you this guy's not any good against lefties and he's very good against righties. And again, to me, that felt like a huge feel move of, man, Bachman had that guy. Let's let him have one more, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I think that brings up a interesting point. I wonder how Ray Montgomery feels in those moments. I wonder if he goes, I'm getting good excitement and energy from that guy, or now he's looked in the bullpen 4 or 5 times, or looked in the dugout, so we got to go get him, right? Like I wonder how he feels. With Wash, you can tell Wash is more emotion and feelings than he is strategy and analytics. I think he uses strategy and analytics sometimes to the detriment. I think sometimes to the positive, and same thing with feel and emotions. But I do like those moments where Wash comes out and goes, all right, how you feeling? Tell me the truth. Right. And I miss those 5th inning, 5 2/3 moments. Right. I missed that. Yeah. I missed that. And we don't see that from Ray Montgomery. Ray Montgomery has already made a decision about what he wants to do before he gets out to talk to that pitcher. It felt like Wash was like, I'm going to see, and then we're going to make a choice here. I'm leaning towards bringing in Detmers and pulling Hendricks, but I'm going to see how this guy feels in this moment.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the difference so far. So, maybe it's a coinkydink, Mike, that things have changed, but it really feels like this is the Angels kind of being who they are at the end of the day, and then becoming the team that, again, ironically enough, analytically on paper, this is the team that everything says that they should be.
FanDuel is the best way to get in on all of the action and to focus on every game, whether you're following the action or maybe you're watching from a distance. You can make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel. They're going to let you pay attention and then maybe even win some money. I've been using FanDuel. I'm tracking all of my favorite matchups. The app, it keeps it fresh for me. There's daily promotions every single day and fun ways to make bets. It's so easy to use. I'm using it, so you can use it. There's fast payouts, and they even make regular season games like last night's pathetic game against the Rangers must-watch events because you can bet on strikes and balls and calls and all of those things. You can check out FanDuel today. And then if you're feeling lucky, you could maybe place a same-game parlay, or you can ride a bet into the 9th inning because you're hoping this guy comes through. FanDuel is going to allow you to do that. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So open the app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
There's been a lot of questions about the effectiveness of the bullpen. And so I did a little digging. And so after the Blue Jays series, Mike, the bullpen ERA for the Angels is 5.06. Now, obviously, there's been 2 games since then. It's probably 18 now that, last night's game happened. But at the time that I did this research, it was after the Blue Jays series, a 5.06 ERA for just the bullpen, 27th in Major League Baseball. Now, you know me, when I dive into a project, I dive in head first, and that's what I did. So I went back through every game this season up through the Blue Jays series to figure out which games the bullpen gave up runs that actually mattered versus games where the runs didn't matter. Because we all know that there's been blowouts. Obviously, last night was a blowout, but that's not part of this conversation. A 5.06 bullpen ERA looks bad on the surface, and in an ideal world, it would be lower, but how much of those earned runs actually mattered when it came to the outcome of a game? Here's what I mean. How about the last game, the final game against the Braves? Brock Burke came in to finish the game. The Angels had a 5-0 lead. He gave up that solo home run to Jerickson Profar with 1 out, and then the game ended at 5-1. So did Burke give up a run? Yes. Did it add to his ERA? Yes. Did it add to the bullpen ERA? Yes. But did it actually matter? No, it was a 5-1 win. And so I set some ground rules for us here, Michael.
Okay.
Would you mind taking the rules section here so everybody's clear on how we're determining a run that mattered from the bullpen versus a bullpen run that didn't matter?
Yeah. So lean in, pay attention. Here we go. What do we consider the runs that matter? If the tying run comes to the plate in the inning, that might be a save or a hold situation, even if the bullpen didn't blow the lead or allow the tie, but gave up a run in this situation. Let's consider that a run that matters. Now, what about runs that don't matter? Angels have a huge lead, or the Angels starter already gave up the game. The game's already been given away. Let's also consider if the Angels even scored anything, because we all know that the offense has been really bad at times and not giving any run support, a la last night, right? Yeah. I'd also need to point out that even if the run was charged to the starter because a reliever let them score, we counted that as a run that mattered if it was a close game. So those are the rules that John is playing with. Go ahead.
There were a lot of inherited runners that came around to score that were the property of the starter. But the fact is I'm counting that as a bullpen run because they allowed that run to score. They didn't strand those runners. So through the Blue Jays series from over last weekend, here's what I tallied. The Angels had played 89 games. The bullpen had thrown 300 1/3 innings pitched. And the bullpen runs that they surrendered that actually mattered, 124 runs, Mike.
Okay.
Now, the bullpen runs that didn't matter, there were 63 runs. So 124 that actually impacted the game, changed the win probability, versus 63 runs that, who cares? It's over, right? So here's what I did. If we were to take the ERA of just the runs that mattered, the 124, we'd end up with an ERA of 3.72 for the bullpen. Those are the runs that affected the outcome of the game. They're runs that maybe tied the game, runs that brought the opponent within striking distance, or runs that put the game out of reach for the Angels. So they were right there, and then they lost the closeness of the game. So again, a 3.72 ERA. In meaningful games and in meaningful moments, the Angels bullpen has put up an ERA of 3.72. That would give them the 12th best bullpen ERA in Major League Baseball. Do you want to hear some of the most meaningless bullpen runs and the games that they happened in? Do you want to talk about that, Mike?
Yeah. So how about 7 runs to Houston on Friday, April 11th, with the final score 14-3 Houston. Astros were already up 7-2 in the 6th. Michael Darrell Hicks allowed 4 in the bottom of the 6th. Ian Anderson, remember him? He allowed 3 in the bottom of the 8th. Then Sunday, May 4th, 13-1 loss against the Tigers. Kohanowitz gave up 5 as a starter. So it was already 5-0 in favor of the Tigers when the bullpen came in. Michael Darrell Hicks is back, gave up 3. Jose Fermin gave up 3. And then Tuki Toussaint, remember him?
Tuki.
He gave up 2. And then let's do one more. Sunday, June 15th against the Orioles, where the Angels lost 11-2. Connor Brogdon came in, and it was a 5-2 deficit. Gave up a grand slam, made it 9-2. Now, you could argue that being down 5-2, they're still in the game, right? One of those runs might have mattered if it made it 6-2 and the game was still within reach. But the other 3 were from the grand slam. So they really don't matter at this point. It made it out of reach. And then the Orioles added 2 more, made it 11-2. So by our count, there's 5 runs that made it a blowout. And at that point, there's no coming back from that.
Right.
And Angels didn't do anything anyway. It was 1-2-3 in the 8th, a walk, a K, and then a double play in the 9th inning.
So that's what we're talking about when we talk about meaningless runs scored against this Angels bullpen. So all of that to say, there have been meaningful moments where the bullpen has faltered, but we can't take the bullpen ERA of 5.06. It's going to be way worse after last night's game, by the way, because you had to run out Aldegari and Kevin Newman to get you through the game. So think about this when you look at the bullpen ERA. Think about for a second who's been in this pen and contributed to that bullpen ERA. Michael Darrell Hicks. Remember Ryan Johnson in his first game, in the first game against Chicago, where he got brought back out and we all thought that was the wrong move. And then he gave up a bunch of runs. Ian Anderson was there for a while. Garrett McDaniels, who, to be fair, probably just wasn't ready for the big leagues, but he gave up a lot of meaningless runs. And then Tuki Toussaint, good grief. What, we had him for a flash in the pan. Talk about what was that, 2 years ago he was with us. So, and then you have a game like last night. And again, I did this before this Rangers series, but that bullpen ERA is going to blow up because of all the runs that were surrendered in last night's game. So in conclusion, when it counts, when it matters, when the game is on the line, and you have a bullpen arm that you can trust, not Tuki Toussaint, not Michael Darrell Hicks, when the games matter, the Angels arms that you really can count on have put up a 3.72 ERA, and that's pretty darn good in my book.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. Let's vent. Let's talk about it together, and we'll try our best to get back to you on today's show on YouTube. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about, and even on this show, about what to do with the lineup, where to put Mike Trout. Nolan Shonowell says, nah, leave it alone. And we're going to share why he says, leave it alone tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Wait, can you read it the way you had it written on there? Tell you Nolan Shonowell likes the lineup just the way it is. I really wanted to sing Billy Joel. All right, friends. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
And it's just the way you are,
John. Don't go changing.
Just the way you are. Not
Montgomery's lineup. I want you just the way